I'm gonna make sure that this does in fact go live before we start because I don't like to say anything that doesn't get live or doesn't get recorded. So give me 1 second, say hello in the chat. We're glad that you are back. And if you're new here for the first time, let us know that. Okay, perfect. All right, we're good. So before we get started, I'm just going to mention Dr. Saunders here is a wonderful doctor, but he is not your doctor. So we just ask that you consult with your healthcare provider before you implement any of the things that we talk about here today. Okay. And I'm going to pop in the chat here and just see what we have going on. All right, so Elliot is here. Thank you for saying hello. I'm also going to ask that as you guys have questions, please post those in the Q&A. A little easier for us to manage those there, okay? Usually someone at least once or twice says, "You're ignoring all my questions" in the chat when I go through it later. I say, "I promise I'm not." So, okay. All right. Again, episode 282. William is returning. We're glad that you're back. Hello, Mary. Teresa's here from California. Welcome, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about the top 5 things that hurt your heart. And this is going to be a fun topic. Those of you who maybe haven't been around for a couple of weeks, we've sort of merged our webinars into one webinar. So on Wednesdays at this time, 1 p.m. Central Time, we're doing this webinar. We're going to vary our topics a little bit. So we may be talking about type 2 diabetes, how to keep our heart healthy or reverse some of those problems. We may be talking about some home cures that work. And the reason we call them home cures that work is because Barton has a publication called Home Cures That Work. I used to get it mailed to me, which was so fun. Remember that? I actually got someone else's mail yesterday, and it was a catalog for dresses and stuff. And I thought, I haven't seen one of these in so long, but it was so fun. I looked through it all before I'm going to give it back to him. Anyway, I like getting things in the mail like that.
When I was young, we had the Sears catalog, and
Yes.
I would lay down on the floor with that Sears catalog and just go through the whole thing and go,
Yes.
wow, look at that. Oh, cool, look at that.
Yes. I know. I know for Christmas, my grandma, when our family was smaller, would let us circle things in the catalog that we might want for Christmas. And that was so much fun. My kids have never really experienced that before. That's not something that they are even familiar with. I don't
Yeah,
even know if they
yeah,
know if they've ever gotten the mail, if I'm honest. So,
yeah. But you never got to experience YouTube as a kid. So, it's all different.
right. Yeah, very different. This is nice though. And I also love that I should probably get back on track. Home Cures That Work was a printed publication. Now it's all online. In fact, you can find it at Home Cures That Work. Dr. Saunders writes articles for home cures and lots of good information, topics that we don't necessarily always talk about or you don't hear a lot about, and things we maybe haven't covered. So we're going
Yeah.
to bring in some of that, which
This
should be really
year, this week, or for next month, I'm writing one right now. I'm researching brain mapping. Very, very
fun.
interesting. It's been around for a long time, but it's surprising how controversial it is. Man, I'm just finding so much controversy on it.
Interesting. Oh, that'll be fun. I'm excited. We'll have to talk about that soon. So
Yeah.
keep keep coming back because we got a lot of good topics in store for you guys. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Again, please post your questions in the Q&A. We are going to talk about the top 5 things that hurt your heart. So I'm going to start with number 1. This is a big one, stress. How does stress hurt our heart, Dr. Saunders?
Okay, stress is a big deal. It's not a small thing, but let's look at it in terms of heart. What does it do actually to the heart? When you have stress, you release a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is a hormone that affects every single cell in your body. It makes you insulin resistant. It makes you put on weight. It makes you put fat on your body. It makes you um, eat more. You crave, especially carbohydrates, more. And part of that is because it makes you insulin resistant. But there's one thing it does to your heart that is devastating. And that is that normally when you have any damage to the lining of your blood vessels, the inside of your blood vessels, that lining gets damaged, you immediately have APCs, progenitor cells come in and cover right over it. Like in seconds, it's all covered over. Whatever the damage is, the clot forms, and the APCs come and cover over it. They pave it, and they make the glycocalyx, and everything looks normal again, like in seconds, like less than seconds. It's like milliseconds, and it's so fast. When you have stress, the APCs don't work. They don't pave over it. So you get a clot on there. And then because the clot's there, you build up more clot and more clot because it never gets, it not never, it takes a longer time to get paved over. So you're making more clots when blood vessels are damaged. Well, if that happens in the heart and you're making a little bit of clot, well, no big deal, but more clot, now you're constricting your blood vessels and you're cutting off the blood supply to your heart. So that's where heart attacks come in, from stress. And so having a broken heart is a real thing. People do die from a broken heart. And this has been proven in multiple studies. There's something in the United States called Prinzmetal's angina. And that is people, when they get blood constriction of their blood vessels, and that's from stress, that's the autonomic nervous system shutting off the blood supply to the heart. And that happens from getting a broken heart. You get the sympathetic response, stress response, and you get that. In Japan, they call it Takotsubo syndrome, because a takotsubo is a trap for octopus. And this funny looking trap, when the heart isn't getting enough blood supply because of the constriction of blood vessels, the heart, when they take a picture, when they take an x-ray of it, it has this funny shape that looks like a takotsubo to the Japanese. So, it's a real thing. It's not just in the United States, it's all over the world. And stress is really a problem. So, oh yeah, there it goes. Oh yeah, see, there's your Japanese octopus trap from the enlarged left ventricle. Okay. So, and this is just due to stress. And it was noted first in women after they'd lost their husbands. So widows would come into the emergency department with having a heart attack, and they do an x-ray of the heart, and they would see this unusual shape of the heart. And it is due to the lack of blood supply from the stress of, in this case, losing someone they love. So it's a big deal, and stress is really big. So here's the thing about stress. We talk about, well, don't get stressed. Well, how are you not going to get stressed? That's like telling somebody, don't breathe. Because breathing, you could breathe bad air. Yeah, sure you could. So stress is important. You have to go to the gym and stress your muscles, or your heart's not going to work. You have to stress your mind, or your brain's not going to work. You have to stress. You need stress. But what they don't tell you is you need to recover or repair from stress. And that recovery is when you're sleeping at night. The anabolic metabolism repairs all the damage in your body and fixes everything. So you can do things to de-stress, and that is meditation is a good way to de-stress. Prayer is a good way to de-stress. Exercise is a good way to de-stress, and making sure you get enough sleep. So we talk about the 6-10 reset. Stop eating by 6, and then be asleep by 10, and that gives you good rest. That gives you anabolic metabolism to repair from all the stress of the day. And that will actually help your heart to repair as well. So all the damaged blood vessels in your heart will repair during that time.
I love this. This is good. Just another reminder, post your questions in the Q&A. That would be wonderful. We'll get to as many of those as possible here when we're done going through these top 5, I think. Another one of the top 5 ways to hurt your heart. This is an interesting one, mental health. Let's talk about that.
Okay. And mental health issues isn't stress. I mean, I talked about grief, right? And that's part of stress, but that's not the issue in mental health. I'm talking about like serious mental health problems, people who have schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depression, chronic anxiety. These mental health issues are a big heart problem. And we often don't look at it. We separate. In fact, when I was just starting out in medicine 30 years ago, they had what they called the mental health carve out. And that meant that in the county, I was working for the county of Santa Barbara, that we would do the physical health things, the high blood pressure and cholesterol stuff and all that. And then they would have a separate psychiatry department, psychology department do the mental health part. So they would separate out the physical health from the mental health. And you know what the reality is? They are the same and they're so connected. And having these mental health issues is not a minor problem. You have to look at, oh my gosh, anyone who has schizophrenia, you got to look at their heart because they're going to have heart problems. And I've seen it multiple times. People who have mental health problems also have heart disease. So fixing the mental health problem often fixes the heart disease as well. Because what is mental health problems? Well, the brain isn't functioning right. And when it's not functioning right, there's a reason. And it's usually something having to do with energy production. Well, guess what? The heart requires just as much, well, not as much energy, but requires a constant supply of energy as well. And so you're going to see the two things come together, and they do. So if you have mental health problems, get your heart checked.
Interesting. Okay. Number 3 on our list of top 5 things that hurt your heart, a poor diet. That's not a shocker. That's not a shocker. But let's talk through some of that.
Okay, so but there's the question of why. What is it about a pure diet that causes heart disease? It's not cholesterol and it's not high blood pressure. Those are not related at all. What's actually related is energy production. So your heart needs a constant supply of energy, and your heart can't use only sugar, glucose for energy. It needs about 60% of the energy to come from fat and 40% from glucose. And so if you're not able to use fat for energy, then you're going to have less energy in your heart. What does that cause? Congestive heart failure. It causes arrhythmias of the heart, atrial fibrillation, and just poor heart function. So you get these heart problems from not having enough energy, and a poor diet definitely contributes to that. The other thing that you get is more inflammation. And when you have more inflammation, you make more clots. And when you make more clots, you clog up your arteries, and then you don't have enough blood flow to the heart. So all of these can be related to having a poor diet. So what do you eat? Just eat real food. Anything that comes out of the ground in its natural state is okay. Fish and meat and eggs and cheese and all the fruits and vegetables, and avoid anything that comes in a package. That's just a simple way to do it. Well, you know what? I was thinking about that. I buy bread, and that comes in a package. I tried making my own bread for a while, and then it just got too hard. So,
and you can get pretty decent bread, like decent sourdough, like just a few ingredients.
Yeah,
if you have a local
ingredients.
place near you, I mean.
And I found one. There's a whole grain is called the like 12 grains or nuts and seeds bread or something like that. Is not bad. The one at Trader Joe's. Yeah. It doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. It doesn't have any dough conditioners. Doesn't have any of the junk in it. It's actually a pretty good loaf of bread.
Good. All right. But if you are doing the diabetes solution kit, don't go get that.
Yeah, don't go get it.
Maybe later, but right now you're not going to do that. Okay. Well, maybe you could. That might be all the food you're eating for the day.
So. Yeah. One slice is all you get.
Enjoy. All right. Number 4 on our list of top 5 things that hurt your heart: lack of exercise.
Okay, so this is a lack. This is not doing something, but it's a problem because, like me, here I am sitting in front of you doing a webinar, right? And what am I going to do afterward? Well, I'm going to sit in front of patients and talk to them. And then I'm writing on my computer. I get up in the morning, my computer opens, my laptop opens up, and I'm like, and then I go to work, I drive to work, right? And then I'm on my computer all day. And then I drive home and then I go back on my computer. I'm not on my feet hardly at all unless I purposely try to. So I had to do that after over a year of not purpose. I kept thinking, well, I'll get to it. And one day I finally just said, no, I got to just do it. So I run a 5K 3 times a week, and I do other exercises during in between times. You got to keep it up. It's really important because it's something that's not automatic anymore. If you lived 100 or 1,000 years ago, you would have had a lot of work to do, unless you were really rich. But everybody had physical labor to perform, to dig holes or plow fields or whatever. Things had to be done, and it all had to be done with muscles. And now we have tractors to do everything, and so everything's electronic. We don't have to work out. So we drive our car to the gym, go up the escalator, get on the stair stepper, do our stair steps, go down the escalator, get back in the car, and drive home. Does that make sense?
That is true. Sad. Okay. Number 5 on our list of top 5 things that hurt your heart, smoking. I think we've been told this forever, but what is the actual reason?
Okay, what actually, while you're smoking, you have decreased repair processes and you're more likely to clot. It's clots that cause damage to the heart. So what's really, really interesting is that when you quit smoking, you no longer have an increased risk of heart disease, any more increased risk than anyone else. It's only while you're smoking, during the time that you're smoking, that you actually have an increased risk. Yeah, smoking is a risk, but all the things they said it was when I was in high school, I remember the health class saying, it makes your heart beat faster, and you only have a certain number of heartbeats for your lifetime. And so if you're smoking and your heartbeat goes up, then your lifetime is decreasing. It's like, you ever see the Princess Bride? We've just sucked 1 week of life out of you. In the machine, in the torture chamber. What was it called?
Yeah.
The pit of despair.
Love it.
Anyway, so yeah, smoking is a problem while you're smoking. But here's the good news. When you quit smoking, you don't have an increased risk. So quitting is actually a good idea. And you can be like Mark Twain. Quitting smoking is easy. I've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah. Well, and we've had the discussion about smoking and stress, and maybe we shouldn't go into that in today's webinar because that will defeat the purpose of what you're trying to say, I think. But very interesting thoughts on all of these things. And one of the things you may notice that didn't make the list, which is one of the top things that we have found online, is alcohol consumption. And I think it's okay. Let's just talk about that. Why didn't that make the list of top 5 things that hurt your heart?
Because alcohol doesn't by itself damage your heart. People who drink a lot of alcohol lose B vitamins. And it's really just kind of a lack of B vitamins prevents energy or blocks the energy, or you have less energy. And that only happens to some people. So it's kind of interesting that alcohol has a definite effect on the liver, but not really a bad effect on the heart.
Interesting. Okay, let's review those. And while I go through these, post your questions in the Q&A. That is a separate place than the chat, just letting you guys know. There's a chat section and a Q&A section. So if you can post them in the Q&A, that's great. Again, the top 5 things that hurt your heart, you can go back and rewatch this as well, but stress, mental health, poor diet, lack of exercise, and smoking. Okay, let's go through some of these questions that have come in the Q&A. Anonymous says, is there any difference between magnesium and manganese? Which is the best bioavailable brand?
Okay, so manganese is very important trace mineral where you need very tiny amounts of it, microgram quantities, and you can get too much. So manganese is very important. Separate from that is magnesium, and magnesium is more than a trace mineral. It's still called a trace mineral because it's not really a macronutrient, but you need a lot of it. You need like a gram a day kind of thing. Whereas if you took that much manganese, you would get toxic on it. So it's important to get enough magnesium. And here's the thing about magnesium, it's a common deficiency. Like a lot of people have that because we don't have staple foods in our culture that are high in magnesium. You know, I was just in Mexico last weekend, and you know, if you eat beans all the time, you're going to get magnesium. So anything that grows, like nuts and seeds and beans, peas, lentils, they all have magnesium in them, or anything that's green. The darker the green, the more magnesium. And so our greens always consist of, you know, iceberg lettuce or romaine lettuce that have very little magnesium in them because they're light green, right? Whereas if we were eating spinach and kale and beet greens and mustard greens, then we would get a lot more magnesium. But that's not a staple food for that. Yeah, people eat it sometimes, but it's not like everyday stuff. So it's hard to get enough magnesium. And so taking a supplement is a good idea, about 400 milligrams a day.
Okay. There's a really good magnesium supplement that you can find at bartonnutrition.com. Use code webinar25. You'll save 25% on that. But that is a spray. Well, what do you know? There you go.
Easy relief magnesium.
So this is our product, and I don't know how to get that blur off, guys. But I really, really love this. I think our whole team probably uses this, but a good spray. Again, you can find that at bartonnutrition.com or bartonwebinar.com will take you there as well. But don't forget the code webinar25, one word. Okay, let's keep going here. Anonymous said, question is related to the doctor's March 5th email of diabetes home blood fix, referencing mixing 2 home ingredients with water 1 hour before bed. I listened to the video twice and still not find or hear. Okay, so that one, I'll have to look at that one. I'll try to figure out what that is, and we'll let you know about that because I'm not exactly sure which email that one is. In fact, probably I should just tell them to email customer support.
Yeah, Cheryl's going to know.
Okay, so I'll send that in your, as a comment, the email address that you could message about that. Okay. Oh, I missed a whole bunch before that. All right, Whitney says, how do ozone treatments impact health?
Oh, good question. We're actually going to do a home cures that work on ozone. Ozone is O3. It's oxygen. It's 3 oxygens together instead of 2. No, so normally O2 is what you breathe. O3 is ozone. And because of the instability of ozone, it's a really good oxidant. Yeah, it causes oxidation, which is damage, which is wonderful if you want to get rid of bacteria or something. So ozone is often used for people with infections. I had an experience with that once where we used ozone. No, that was actually we didn't use ozone. We used ultraviolet. We used ultraviolet blood irradiation. Anyway, I know people that have used ozone, like people that have a Lyme disease, where they take a syringe full of ozone, it looks like air, and they bubble the ozone into the vein. Okay, so you're going to lose that vein because it's all the oxidative damage that's going to be done. The vein is just going to shrink up, but it doesn't matter. You got plenty of other veins, and so that's not a big deal. But that will dissolve into the blood, and wherever there's any of these organisms, it'll kill them. And then the dead organisms, the immune system goes, oh, we got to clean all this mess up, and starts cleaning up the dead organisms. And because it makes antibodies against the dead ones, then it starts taking the living organisms too. And so you can get rid of infections, blood infections, by injecting ozone directly in. And I've had people with Lyme disease do those ozone injections and have it work for them. But remember that it's an oxidant. It's not a totally benign thing. It causes oxidation. It causes oxidative damage. It can damage DNA, just like any other oxidation. So if you have sufficient antioxidants in your body, you can take care of that. But just being careful, because if you're breathing ozone, you're going to feel it in your lungs, the oxidative damage in your lungs, and you'll probably burn your eyes. Used to be that was a big problem with pollution before they had catalytic converters. They used to have this, ozone was part of pollution, and people's lungs would burn and their eyes would burn. I lived in Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles, and it was bad. Some days we had smog alerts and we couldn't go to school. We had to stay in the house and not go out and outside and exercise because of the high levels of smog.
Wow.
And that's a lot of that is ozone.
Interesting. Okay. Anonymous says, what is nattokinase? Any recommendations for a specific company? And what should you look for in a nattokinase supplement that can tell us if it's a good product and if it's a safe supplement to take?
Good questions. Those are such good questions, and I wish I had all the answers. Nattokinase comes from natto. Natto is a fermented soybean curd, and the bacteria, as they're fermenting the soybeans, they make an enzyme called nattokinase that dissolves clots. And so this nattokinase is a clot dissolver. They extract the nattokinase out of the natto. And so they have functional units of how much the enzyme can dissolve. And it's usually used like 2,000 units, functional enzyme units, FEUs, I think it is. And they, so that's the amount that's in there. And so that's what you're looking for, is how much functionality does it have? How much clot is it able to dissolve? And they've kind of translated that into milligrams. So some of them don't tell you how many functional units. And so they go by milligrams. And so 2,000 functional units is 200 milligrams. So that's kind of what it ends up to be. So for nattokinase, you're taking about 200 milligrams. It turns out that more times a day is better than fewer times a day, depending. If you have clots, if you already have a DVT, for example, deep vein thrombosis in your leg, and you've got this clot, in the big veins of your leg, you're going to want to take that 4 times a day. If you just want to prevent clots from happening, you want to dissolve little clots as they're forming so that they don't make big clots, then you may want to take it twice a day. So it just depends on what the functionality. Now, as far as brands go, I looked it up once, and I know I've recommended it several times. Just look for one that tests before and after, so that they test before, so that they know that that's really what they're putting in there, and they test after. They take occasional pills out to say, does this have what it says it's supposed to have in it? So if the company does testing, independent lab testing on their supplements, then that's a good idea.
Okay. Anonymous says, is a leaky liver one of the causes of type 2 diabetes?
Okay. In a sense, yes. The word leaky liver is too vague in general to be used in medicine, so we don't use that. But the term usually refers to the liver is making a whole bunch of glucose. And so the liver is putting out glucose and leaking, so to speak. And fat, by the way. There's also, so your triglyceride levels in your blood are going to be elevated. And so but that's not the cause. But yes, it's part of the metabolic process or the problem of type 2 diabetes. really the answer is to clean the liver out by not eating anything for a while. So if you do a cleanse, you can clean the liver out, and then it won't be leaky anymore. It'll just work.
Okay. KJ says, good news. 2 to 3 weeks into phase two, my blood glucose levels are staying between 90 and 120 about 90% of the time. My question, my coach recently contacted me and doubled my dose of Synachroma. I'm not up to 4 a day. And informed me that I need another supplement that was not included in my initial order, which I was told contained everything I needed for the year, and I've not heard about it before, according to my coach, for a pancreas reset. Can you please explain or elaborate?
Okay.
Supplement for pancreas reset.
Huh. Okay. Um, the, Now I'm disagreeing with your coach, so I don't know the why the coach would say that, but Synachroma should not be taken more than 2 capsules a day. One capsule is 5,000 units of vitamin D. 2 capsules is 10,000 units of vitamin D, and so the amount in each one is adequate. 1 capsule is enough for most people. 2 capsules is for people who are just getting started or know they have deficiencies or are not well controlled in their diabetes. So no more than 2 capsules a day. The pancreas reset is not done by taking a supplement. The pancreas reset is actually done by not eating. So a 3-day water fast, for example, is a great pancreas reset. That's the stomach, the pancreas, the whole digestive system, even the liver resets during that time that you're not eating. And 3 days is an excellent way to do that. That's what I do, 3 days once a month. And then the other supplement, well, I don't know what it is. Berberine would be a decent one to take. You're actually doing really well if you're on phase two and you're between 90 and 120. That's still a little on the high side. You could go back to phase one and get it down between 70 and 90. That would be optimal. But yeah, you're doing great. You're muted.
Sorry, it's okay. I didn't say anything important. But I was saying hi to Beverly again, and she says brain mapping via fMRI.
Yeah, there's various ways to do brain mapping. The one I'm looking at is, well, what I'm gonna talk about the fMRI
Okay.
too.
Okay.
So fMRI is a functional MRI, is that people are told to think certain things, say certain things, or do certain things while they're in the MRI scanner so that they can
Ooh.
see what part of the brain is being used. That's a way of brain mapping. The one I'm talking about is an EEG, electroencephalogram. That is a special kind of electroencephalogram. And then there's another way called a SPECT scan. And the SPECT scan is commonly used for mental illnesses to look at a functional analysis of the brain. So I'll be looking at each one of those, but the EEG is the one that is commonly thought of as brain mapping. It's been used for many, like 20 years. It's been around for brain mapping.
Okay. Frank and Pat, welcome back. Someone asks, I have high blood pressure and some angina in the past. I have used nitric oxide supplement, which seemed to help. Is there anything else I can do that would be helpful in reducing the blood pressure?
Yes. So if your blood pressure is high, find out why it's high, because there's over 100 different reasons for the blood pressure to go up. If your kidneys aren't getting enough blood flow, then they're going to raise the blood pressure up. If your brain's not getting enough blood flow, then it's going to raise the blood pressure up. It could be a heart problem. It could be an adrenal problem. It could be a pituitary gland problem, thyroid problem. There's all kinds of things that could cause high blood pressure. One of the most common that I see most commonly is a metabolic problem that causes high blood pressure. Metabolic means that you're the insulin resistance is high enough to decrease the available energy because it blocks the use of fat for energy. So insulin tells the body, don't use fat for energy. And when that happens, there's less energy around. So the kidneys, the brain, the heart, the liver are starving for energy. And they're going, quick, raise the blood pressure so we can get more nutrients here. But that's not the problem. So you have to deal with the metabolic problem and get your fat burning working properly, and then the blood pressure comes down really nice. I actually had a case today of someone I followed up on who from last December had started a ketogenic diet, didn't have diabetes, but he did have some insulin resistance and high blood pressure. And when his insulin resistance came down, his blood pressure came down really nicely. And then he added carbs in, and his blood pressure went back up again. And that was today's talk with him today. That could be an issue. So we're testing for that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm looking between multiple screens here. Good question here from William. Is the 30-day detox program unto itself, or is it the carrying out of phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit? If there's more to it, where can I find it?
Oh, no, the phase 1 in the diabetes solution kit is everything you need. It goes through step by step. Why are you doing this? What are your goals? What do you want to achieve? Okay, get started. How do we do this? Grocery store list. What are you going to buy from the grocery store? It's all in there. And so just do that. There's nothing magical about a 30-day cleanse, a 40-day cleanse, all of that stuff. You could do that, but the purpose for the diabetes solution kit is to get your insulin sensitivity back so that things start working again.
Awesome. Okay. John said, my doctor has prescribed metformin. I have a friend who has diabetes, and his doctor prescribed Trijardi. What is the difference between the two and its side effects?
Trijardi, what's that?
I don't know. I've actually never heard of that. Sounds like a mix between Jardiance and
Oh, it might be.
something.
Trijardi.
Yeah, it does. It is Jardiance and Tradjenta.
Yeah. So
And
it's
metformin.
yeah, and metformin. So it's three medications.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. Sitagliptin, mesalazine. Okay. So this triple Trijardi, you know what? Don't take it. Okay, so what's the difference? The difference is that one has metformin in it also, and you have metformin. Metformin's okay. It's not great for long term because it does limit your ability to make energy from glucose, which is kind of what you want to do when you're first starting off, and so it's okay. But eventually, you're going to want to get off that. And if you want to get off that right now, then you could take berberine instead. That would be because berberine essentially does an equivalent thing as far as slowing down the body's ability to use glucose so that you burn more fat for energy. That's kind of what it does. So the Trijardi also makes you insulin resistant because it increases your insulin production. So every time you eat, instead of getting this much insulin, you get extra insulin, and that makes you more insulin resistant. So it's not a good idea.
Okay. Rose said, I just had an angio CT scan with contrast. It came back with no blockages, but it did say something about my cholesterol. Could that create a blockage?
No, cholesterol is not related to arterial disease or blockage in the arteries. So no, not an issue.
Okay. Sib said, I've been reading up on memory loss and learned that it may be caused by a lack of blood flow to the brain. Would high blood pressure contribute to this condition, memory loss as well?
No, but that's a great question because when you don't have enough energy production in the brain, then your brain is saying, "Hey, I need more flow here," and raises the blood pressure, and to get more flow. And it's a problem with the energy production in the brain, and that's the issue. And part of it is when you're insulin resistant, you make fewer glucose transport molecules. So the sugar cannot get across the blood-brain barrier. You actually have to have an enzyme that reaches across the blood-brain barrier, grabs a sugar glucose molecule, and brings it into the brain one at a time. One at a time. So won't grab it, pull it in, let it go. Grab it, pull it in, let it go. So when you have fewer of those, then you just get less glucose into your brain. Your brain is starving in a sea of sugar because when you have insulin resistance, you make fewer of those glucose transport molecules. So you can increase them by lowering your blood sugar. Then you increase the number of glucose transport molecules. And that's been proven in studies. So that's a really important thing. The extra blood flow does not fix the problem. That's where the issue comes in. The blood pressure is not going to go down because it's not working. It's not fixing the problem. You actually have to lower the blood glucose in order to fix the problem by getting more of those glucose transport molecules to bring sugar into the brain.
I love this. I'm just going to quick mention this. Someone had said, I've had diabetes for 15 years. Should I try the diabetes solution kit?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted you guys to know anybody can do this. You don't even have to have diabetes to do this. It is good for your health. So,
I don't have diabetes, but I did my genetic test, and I have a couple of genes that predispose me to getting diabetes. And so I do the diabetes solution kit. And yeah.
Okay. Rosalind said, Hi, Dr. Saunders. Speaking of stress, OMG, I did not know how much stress I was dealing with. I've encountered a thyroid problem. I had a biopsy last week, but I was studying was what can cause it besides stress. How does insulin resistance cause it? I don't want to be stuck using insulin, so what can I do?
Okay. So the thyroid issue is often an adrenal problem because adrenal hormones like cortisol block you from making the inactive thyroid into the active thyroid. So you don't get as much active thyroid. So you have low thyroid because of the high cortisol levels blocking that transition or the transformation of the T4 to T3. So sometimes the thyroid problem is not due to the thyroid gland, it's due to the adrenal stress, right? That causes that. But guess what else adrenal stress does? It makes you insulin resistant. And so that's where the diabetes comes in. So, yeah, dealing with the stress is a big deal. That is like we said with heart disease. It's important for diabetes too. Like if there is one thing that's going to shorten your lifespan, it's stress. So, but I told you when we first started, I told you that if people tell you to reduce stress, that's ridiculous. You can't reduce stress. And you don't want to reduce stress. It's actually good for you to have stress. So then what are you supposed to do? Manage the stress and have time off. So doing meditation and prayer and exercise and writing in a journal and sleeping properly, doing the 6-10 reset and having very regular sleep and eating schedule. You know, I always go to sleep at 10 o'clock. I always wake up at 6 o'clock. I always eat breakfast in the morning. I always eat lunch in the afternoon, and I skip dinner every day. And having that regularity allows the adrenal glands to predict what's going to happen, and you will have less stress response.
Good. Elliot said, how many heart valves need to be working for proper heart function? I think I only have 3 because during heart surgery last year, the doctor said 1 was already 100% blocked.
Ay, ay, ay. You have to have 4 heart valves or your heart's not going to work very well, or it's going to cause some problems. I don't know which one it would be that's not working, but if the mitral valve isn't working, some people have really bad mitral valve disease, and you can't have a blocked valve because if you have a blocked valve, then you're not going to get blood flowing through. So but if you have a valve that's not working at all, it's just like flapping in the wind, then then you're going to get a lot of pressure. If it's like the mitral valve, you're going to get a lot of pressure in your lungs. You can get heart failure from that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know which valve it is, but that's bad news.
Well, and hopefully they did something about it if they saw it in there when you were having surgery. But
Yeah.
by Bayon says, can walking help your heart?
Oh my goodness, walking is great. Walking is so good, but you need enough too. So walking 10,000 steps seems to be right about a good amount. So if we have Whoop bands, and that's now measuring steps. They didn't used to, but now they measure steps. And getting 10,000 steps a day, that was not easy for me because I'm on my butt most of the day. I need to actually think about getting up and walking and doing something in order to get in those 10,000 steps a day. Yes, walking's great for your heart.
Okay. Mary said, how can we transition the time change for the 610 reset when the time changes by an hour?
I know, but 1 hour is not 1 hour changes pretty quickly. So within a couple of days, then you're back on and then you just do the 610 just like it is. And if you were to travel, if you were to go to India or something, you would fast for a full 24 hours before you get to India. Your first meal has to be breakfast in the morning, and then you just start right up on your 610 reset right there.
Right. Anonymous says, if you have sinus tachycardia and when you exercise, your heart beats fast, your head feels extremely tight, and are fatigued, so you aren't able to exercise, what can you do?
Okay, number one, find out why you're getting sinus tachycardia. There's a reason for it. And it's an arrhythmia that happens because there's not enough energy, the sympathetic nervous system. You might be getting it because of an adrenal hormone abnormality, adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. You could have a neuroendocrine tumor causing it. You could have pituitary gland problems. There's so many possibilities that you have to know why before you treat it. Otherwise, you could be totally treating the wrong thing.
And I don't know if that question was from Sarah or not, but Sarah said she's a 21-year-old female asking about this as well. And it says, doctors tell me there is no reason for it after multiple tests. Should we go to a different doctor at that point?
Yeah, go to a different doctor and just say, I need to know why. I need to know why I'm getting tachycardia because that's not normal. And an electrophysiologist sometimes they can do electrophysiological tests that can tell you that there's a focus, there's an abnormal focus in the heart. There's always a reason. I know we can't always find the reason, but
It's
it
okay to
just
keep looking.
yeah, keep looking and don't give up. Keep looking. And you know what? Go on AI and put there's a new one. What's it called? Oh, there's a new one where you can just enter all your information in, blood tests and urine tests and scans and everything. You just upload them into this. It's not Chat GPT. There's a new one that you could just do all of your medical information, and it will come up with a list. Okay, you have this, 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 this. This is your most likely possibility. This, and then
Wow.
what tests do you do next? And then you do those tests. You enter those in, and it goes, well, it's not that or that. Well, let's try this and this and this, and it's actually really cool.
Wow. That's amazing.
I can't remember what it is.
I mean, you might be giving your information to somebody, but they could probably
Everyone,
get it anyway.
you know what?
I
Yeah,
know.
like
If they want it, they're going to get it.
you can't avoid that.
Anonymous says, what blood work shows if you have magnesium deficiency?
Um, Magnesium. I test people for magnesium. And it's pretty rare to see. Okay, so test RBC magnesium, and that is the intracellular magnesium.
Okay. There was a message from last week that says, please ask Dr. Saunders about the peptide Saccharomyces cerevisiae peptide hydrolysate. Don't know. I'm supposed
Okay.
to ask you about that if you have any ideas. So.
Okay, Saccharomyces cerevisiae is a yeast, and that's it's a beer yeast, and it's commonly, like if you were to buy a nutritional yeast, it would have that.
Mhm.
And then he's talking about hydrolysate, means you take the yeast and you break down the proteins, and so it's peptides essentially. And it's fine. It's a nutritional supplement. I mean, as a nutritional supplement, it's fine. They often use it for MSG substitute because it has some monosodium glutamate, some glutamic acid in it.
Okay. There were a couple questions that said, should I continue my diabetic medications and my supplements while I do the diabetes solution kit?
Um, Yeah, yeah. Continue the supplements. Continue. Yeah. So the as you're getting better, as your blood sugar is improving, then you're going to start saying, well, talking to your doctor and saying, my blood sugar is getting a little bit low. I'm really worried about hypoglycemia. Which medication can I go off of first? And then just start, paring them down and until you don't need any anymore.
Okay. Next question here. What are good ranges for cholesterol and do they change with age? You mentioned a study from Korea that showed different results for cholesterol that is recommended for the USA. Can you talk about the name of it and the study? You know what? I have that graph saved too that I could just share the link to.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the one.
I'll do that. If there's
Yeah,
anything
it's
else you want to say
it's
about it.
12.8 million adults, and it's the largest study ever done. But it's not the only study that showed it. Like all the other studies, all the old studies from the Mr. Fit study done in the United States, all the cholesterol studies show the same thing. If you lower cholesterol less than 200, your death rate goes up. And so you pretty much don't want to lower your cholesterol less than 200. You want it to be between 210 and 250, somewhere in there. The optimum perfect place to be is around 230.
Okay. I'm trying to get weaned off of drinking canned soda. I'm now drinking bottled water with Crystal Light, those single packets. Is that a good alternative?
No.
I
The
think
bottled
that
water,
uses Splenda, right? Unless
the
they've changed
water,
it.
yeah, the bottled water without the Crystal Light is a good alternative.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you know what? If you get those little electrolyte packets or something like that that don't have sugar or artificial sweetener in them,
Yeah.
those are good too.
Um, Lots of questions about fasting. Okay, so when he's talking about the detox, he's talking about the diabetes solution kit. So do that. Find it at bartonwebinar.com. Is there a generic for Tiliquis? Stephen says. Tiliquis? I think,
Eliquis.
yeah, but that's what it's supposed to be.
No. Soon there will be. It's going to come out, I think, by the end of this year, like in September or
Oh,
something.
it was Eliquis. He did comment. Okay. Anonymous said, I've read or heard that when we dry fast, when opposed to water fasting, it has a great effect on autophagy and you lose weight at a faster, better rate. A day of dry fasting equals 3 days of water fasting. Your thoughts on this? In addition to weight, does it help with metabolism resetting or insulin resistance?
Yeah, I don't know about the 1-to-3 ratio, but most of the benefits of fasting are having an empty stomach. If you put water in your stomach, it's not empty, and you lose the benefit of fasting at that point. So the greatest benefit for the least period of time of fasting is a dry fast. And that's what I do 3 days once a month. I have trained my kidneys to be able to concentrate urine. And the way you do that is by limiting water intake to drink only when you're thirsty. And that allows your kidneys to concentrate and hold on to water so that you don't need so that I can go 3 days with no food and no water. Um, Even when I exercise. But if I run and I sweat a lot, like if it's hot out or something and I run, because normally I go early in the morning when it's cold, and I don't sweat much. But if I run like when the sun's up and I sweat, then I'll drink water. So I'm not saying you should get dehydrated.
Yeah.
I'm saying train your kidneys to concentrate urine by drinking only when you're thirsty. And then you could do a dry fast. And yes, one day of dry fasting is better than drinking water.
Okay. Time is up for us. Thank you, Dr. Saunders, for your time and all of
Okay.
these answers. This is great. We'll
See you
see you
next
next
week.
week. Those of you who are asking questions about the Diabetes Solution Kit, you can find that at bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25. One word, webinar25, you'll save 25%. The detox, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that's all in the Diabetes Solution Kit. You can get the digital version of that, so you can download it, have it today. Of course, you can get the hard copy, which you will probably want. Fasting and medications. Dr. Saunders mentions that a lot. There are some medications that you still have to take, thyroid medications, whatever. But if you're taking things for blood pressure or diabetes, you got to monitor that, because if you're not eating, those numbers are likely to come down. And so your medications may make that worse. Let's see. Okay. I think that's probably all I can answer. But thank you for all being here. Come back next week. Bring your questions. Um, love it. This is good. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Go to bartonwebinar.com. You'll find a link to our YouTube channel, so you can watch past episodes there as well, and you can get quite an education. So do that in your free time, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.